Hello, boys and girls. This is the video for Fido Day 8. It's Wednesday, March 25th. Today we're going to estimate adding and subtracting mixed numbers. We're just doing estimates though. You're going to use note pages, Chapter 9, Lesson 9. So if you don't have those, you'll need those. We're going to look at book pages 663, 664, 665, and 667. So if you need to get your book and the gold note packet, go ahead and pause the video and you can get those items. I am going to take a look at something that we already went over. It was Chapter 9, Lesson 1. I know you don't have your notebooks, but this is in your notebooks that are at school. Just to review, we round a fraction to 0 if the numerator is much smaller than the denominator. And there's some examples here. 1/5, that's about 0. 2/7, that's about 0. We round a fraction to one whole, if the numerator is almost equal to the denominator. And there's some examples here. 5/6, that's almost 1 whole. 11/13, that's almost 1. 12/13 is almost 1. So we would round those fractions to 1. And then we went over also rounding a fraction to half if the numerator is about half the denominator. An example here that I have is 3/7. 3 is almost half of 7. 3 is half of 6, so it's almost half of 7. So 3/7 would be about 1/2. Over here, 4/9. 4 is almost half of 9 because 4 is half of 8. So 4/9 is about half. And here, 7/15. 7 is almost half of 15. 7 is half of 14. So it's almost half of 15. So that would round to 1/2. Now we're going to turn in your note packet, the one that I left you, to the gold page that says Lesson 9, Estimate with Mixed Numbers. Okay. Go ahead and make sure you're there. When we estimate with mixed numbers, we're going to look at the fraction part first. And we're going to round the fraction part to either 0, 1, or 1/2. Based off of what you learned back in Lesson 1. If we decide to round it to 1/2, but it's a little bit under 1/2, we're actually going to round it to 0. If we decide to round it to 1/2, but it's a little more than 1/2, we're going to round it up to 1. So really, we're making a choice today when we round the fraction part of the mixed number. Is it closer to 0 or is it closer to 1? And we're going to use that to help us. So we're going to move our note packet over to the side. And I want you to look at page 663 with me. And I'm up here at the top at example 1, and it says, Lucita and Alexis went scuba diving for 7 1/3 hours. The next day, they went scuba diving for 4 2/3 hours. About how many hours did they spend scuba diving all together? Well, the word about tells us we can round. The word altogether tells us we should add. So our job is to do an estimate of 7 1/3 plus 4 2/3. We are going to round each mixed number to the nearest whole number. So let's look at 7 1/3 first. 1/3 you would probably round to either 0 or 1/2. 1/3 is under 1/2. So the 1/3, because it's less than 1/2, we're going to say that 1/3 is really just 0. We're going to add on the 7 part to the 0 to say that 7 1/3 is about equal to just 7. It's about equal to just 7 because the 1/3 part doesn't make it over half. However, when we look at the other mixed number, 4 2/3, 2/3 is over half. So we're going to say 2/3 is like 1 more than 4. It's going to be 4 plus 1 more, about 5. So 7 1/3 is actually closer to 7 than it is to 8. But 4 2/3 is closer to 5 than it is to 4. And once we add them up, 7 plus 5, we get 12. Let me move my book up a little bit so you can see what I've got going on here. So 7 1/3 was about 7. 4 2/3 was about 5. 7 plus 5, that's about equal to 12. So Lucita and Alexis spent about 12 hours scuba diving all together. Remember our little symbol here? One of the kids in period 2 coined the phrase our bacon symbol, right? That bacon symbol means about or approximately equal to. We always say about equal to. So that's why you see it here on the page. Let's turn our page in our books to page 664. Let me set up my thing here. Let's see if I can move this without it falling. There we go. And up at the top, example 2, it says, 1 sea anemone is 3 1/4 feet across, while a second sea anemone is 5 3/4 feet across. About how much longer across is the second anemone? So the word about tells us we get to estimate. How much longer tells us we should subtract this time. So we're going to subtract 5 3/4 minus 3 1/4. But we're going to answer with an estimate because of the word about. So we're going to round each mixed number. Now 5 3/4, we have to decide, is it closer to 5 or is it closer to 6? Well, 3/4 is greater than half. So 5 3/4 rounds up to 6. 3 1/4, 1/4 is less than half. So 3 1/4 is actually closer to 3 than it is to 4. So 3 1/4 is going to be 3. So now our estimate looks like the 6 feet across minus the 3 feet across, which is 3 feet. So 5 3/4 minus 3 1/4, an estimate would be 6 minus 3. It's about equal to 3. So the second anemone is about 3 feet longer across than the first. We're going to move this down so we can look at numbers 1, 2, and 3. Let me move down my camera here. I know it looks like I went maybe too far, huh? Let's do it right there. Great. Okay. So 2 1/8. Our directions say to estimate by rounding to the nearest whole number. So 2 1/8. 1/8 is less than half. So 2 is just going to stay a 2. plus 3 and 5/8. 5/8 is more than half. So 3 is going to go up to a 4. 2 plus 4 is 6. So this is about equal to 6. Number 2, 5 and 2/9. 2/9 is less than half. Like 4/9 would be half. Well, 4.5/9. So 5 and 2/9. 2/9 would round to 0. So this would just stay 5. Minus 3 and 2/3. Well, 2/3 is greater than half. So this would round to 1. So the 1 plus the 3 would be a 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. So our estimate for 5 and 2/9 minus 3 and 2/3, it's about equal to 1. Number 3, 3 and 3/5. 3/5 is greater than half. So 3 becomes a 4, plus 1 and 1/5. Well, 1/5 is less than half, so 1 just stays a 1. 4 plus 1 is 5, so this is about equal to 5. So the main idea here is that you really need to think about, is the fraction part greater than 1/2 or less than 1/2? If it's over 1/2, the whole number goes up 1 more, just like our notebook says here, our note packet. Whereas if it's under 1/2, it just stays the same whole number. Okay? Use these notes. Use your good judgment. You're going to complete page 665 and 667. I want you to take a picture of page 667 and email it to me. All of your parents have my email. Also, if there is trouble, if you're having a difficult time, there's 2 YouTube videos you could go on and watch right there. All right? If you have any questions, have your parents email me your questions right there to amanda.steve@westernbeaver.org. But go ahead and get to work on page 665 and 667. Take a picture of 667 and email it to me when you're done. Talk to you again very soon. Bye.